Oh, can you guys all come to my lodge meeting? Oh, wow, that's really good. Man, you got quiet fast. I want to thank you guys all for coming here. My name is Kara Wagner, and I have the honor of being the president of Mojave Elks Lodge, and that's where we are here tonight. We are on Facebook Live, so that the conversation that Kris and the information that Kris shares with us tonight can go out to people, because we think that people should know about the awesome work that we do. But before Kris gets started, I want to say thank you to Hank Parker. Oh my God. And put all of this dinner together, and I do mean all of it, at his own expense and energy to make this happen, so that all of the funds go to our major project, which leads me to introduce Kris Boyer. Kris is a 43-year veteran of the CHEMPI Major Project, and I am going to let her tell her story because it's just so awesome.
Oh, and you got it.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me here tonight. I actually live in Visalia, which is about 2.5 hours that way, over the hill, far away. But I came tonight because I'm a physical therapist on the Elks Major Project, which is your purple pig. And the slogan on that pig says, with a coin a day, they'll walk, talk, see, and play. And I brought a bunch of slides with me tonight, pictures that'll show up here, where you'll actually see those kids walk. You won't hear them talk because there's no audio, but I will tell you they do talk. They'll be playing, and they'll be seeing things. And I want to share this with you because you're the ones that make this happen. I would be a physical therapist somewhere, definitely working with children, but when I came out of school at Fresno State, I went to work in Tulare County Department of Ed with severely and profoundly handicapped children. I worked for them for about 2.5 years, getting to know the elk therapists that traveled through that area. As I got to know them, I got to know a little bit about the Major Project, and in 1976, I joined the Major Project, and I've been there ever since.
Right.
It's been through a lot of changes and a lot of things, but you should know that the Major Project has 4 divisions. Me as a physical therapist, then there are occupational therapists, speech therapists, and preschool vision screeners. And the screeners are a big part of the project, and they screen children in the preschools all over the state of California for diseases of the eye. And they have found such things as tumors, amblyopia, visual impairment, blindness, and other things that you have allowed those children who have had visual impairments a better view of the world because they can be corrected, many of them corrected. The physical therapists, of which I'm part of it, of course, we're the ones that get in there and, sometimes we sound like the drill sergeants. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. Through all the years, I've changed my approach. I'm not so much a drill sergeant with the kids anymore, but I engage them in activities that help promote the things that I want them to do, whether it's strengthening their core, or strengthening their legs, or strengthening their shoulders, but in a playful nature. You have to get the kids to buy in. Major Project started in 1951. I'll give you a very brief story on this. My father became an elk on my birthday in 1951. So I didn't know at the time, but I was born into this position and born into this job. My godfather was the secretary of the Elks Lodge in Fresno, and my dad became a member that night. So, it's in the stars, or whatever you want to say on that, it's cosmic. So let me show you some slides. If you have questions about what the Major Project does, I'm happy to answer them at any time. But you are what makes the Major Project happen. Through the fundraisers like this, through the money that comes in at convention every year. At convention this year is in Fresno. That's not too far away. Some of you could come and you'll see a child, a real live living child that day, and hear the story of that one particular family. I didn't bring a family tonight, but I brought you all the kids. Now you might say, but those aren't our kids. They're not from Mojave. They're not from Lancaster, Palmdale. They're not from Edwards Air Force Base. But you know what? They're your kids. because you have provided the services for these children. And without you, they wouldn't have had the services. So you need to toot your horn. You need to be very, very, very vocal about what you do and how you do it. And you do it very well. So this first slide, which Paul has already told me, hey, it's the almond blossoms. So this is spring. This is like the birth, right? Okay. So let's go to the first slide. This is Aaron. Aaron is about 4 years old here. Aaron had uncontrolled seizures that the doctors couldn't find. Every time he had a seizure at home, they'd take him to the doctors, and the doctors would say, we can't find it. We've done the EEGs, and we can't find it. So eventually the parents had to videotape their child having major seizures before the doctors could say, oh wow, he's having seizures. Okay, so he had a long period of time where he was, he's 4 years old here. He had uncontrolled seizures up until this age. Next slide. So one of the things we started to work on with him was recognizing shapes. You can see he's trying to put the circle into the square. But in the next slide, he's putting the circle in the circle. Now, if the kids can recognize shapes, circle, square, and triangle, they can begin to recognize letters. So this is a building block for children to be able to recognize letters, words, and then be able to read, possibly write, all kinds of things. Aaron went on from here. You can go to the next slide. Again, the circle's going into the circle now, so he's really making a nice job here. Next slide. And this is the thing you really need to see. Look at that face. When the kids are successful, that makes all of you be successful in what you do. So there he is being successful at putting things in and taking them out and learning things that our kids, all of you had kids or were kids, took for granted. But this child had to be instructed in how to do this because he didn't know how. Next slide. This is Angie. Angie is a child with spina bifida, which she was born with. It's an opening in the spine, and she was paralyzed only in her feet and ankles. If children are paralyzed higher up, the opening in the spine is higher up, they could be paralyzed from the waist down. And I have a kid later on that I'll show you from the waist down. She also, in addition to having spina bifida, had cerebral palsy. And if you look at her right hand, it's not quite functioning as well as her left. So we were sitting on the bucket here, working on balance, and working on trying to reach into there and grab things out and move them from hand to hand. Next slide. I don't know why those aren't staying big, but that's okay. So now she's got it in her right hand. This is a success for us because, and look at her face. They know when they're successful. The kids know when they've done something that's really remarkable. Next slide. In the background, you see a couple of kids? You have to remember, when we work in someone's home, we got the whole family there. So I always incorporate the rest of the family there because the siblings sometimes go, well, how come she gets everything? Everybody comes to see this kid. Well, it's because this kid needs it. So you got to incorporate the other kids too so that they can feel a big part of it also. So in the next slide, I think you'll see that the kids in the background are beginning to get a little antsy, so I asked them to come on down to the floor. Next slide. And now one kid's holding it up here so that she really has to reach with that right hand and extend herself up to get what we're asking for. And sometimes the sibling put it too high, and I go, so you got to put down just a little bit. Because we've got to have it be success. Got to reach the goal. Next slide. And there she is. Right hand has come back down, but she's really good with her left. So we're going to have to bring it back in again, and I'd have to help the sibling again to say, okay, now move it over here a little bit. Okay, but it's hard to do that when I'm behind the camera taking the pictures too. Okay, next slide. She's going to zip the bag shut for me. I would have her pick everything up, put it in the bag. She's got to use both hands, and I use both hands just to zip it shut, which is something she couldn't do. And so we practiced and strengthened and worked on hands and fingers and shoulders and elbows. All of those things that a physical therapist would do, I'm working on your shoulder for your strength. I'm helping you zip the bag. My goal is that you can zip the bag. Next slide. Stairs. These were hard for her because she wears braces on her feet to keep them in correct alignment. And so stairs in and out of her mobile home that she lived in were pretty steep. But when she was successful, next slide, her face begins to light up. She was able to do the stairs. Next slide. and come down the stairs and go back up the stairs. You can see a bicycle to the, I guess that's to the right side of her down there. And pretty soon, we would be working on a bicycle with her too, so that she can pedal and swing herself there. Next slide. Look at that face again. This is when you see the success come across their faces. All right, next slide. Angie went on from here and got into a special education school program. She lived out in Lost Hills. It really is lost, you guys. She lived in Lost Hills and got on a bus that took her from her mobile home park that she lived in back in towards, not all the way to Bakersfield, but back in about 20 miles in to go to school. And when she got into school and got into special ed classes, then we didn't go to the home anymore because now she had services there. The Elks still duplicate a service. If the kids have got services coming to them or in their area or a hospital, we're never in those areas. Mojave doesn't have those things. Lost Hills definitely doesn't have those things. So we're in areas where the kids don't have access to services. You're in areas where the kids don't have access to services. Next slide. This is Anthony. Anthony lived in the middle of nowhere also, in the middle of a big walnut grove or cotton field or wherever. And he was a kid that was born way too early. That's his mother in the background. We instruct the family on what to do with their children while we're not in the home. So if I go in once a week, then this is what I want you to work on when I'm not here this week until I come back next week. And so he was working on walking. He was not walking yet. And we're going to start climbing in and out of this little car that was his. So the next slide is showing him reaching to the top of the car and he's talking to me, not real happy about what I'm asking him to do. Next slide. He's successful, he climbs in. You can see my hair changes in a lot of these. There's different eras of me in these things. Different eras. So he's getting into the little car, and once he's in the car, then he can pull it with his feet and begin to move the car forward. Next slide. And look at the face again. See? When they're successful, when you help the kids to be successful in whatever our little goal is for those children, which is always to me to make them smile, then that's what happens. And you make it happen. Next slide. Again, just that beautiful, beautiful face of this child who's so happy to have been able to do something that we take for granted, climbing in and out of the toy. Next slide. This is Ariana. Again, my hair's changed. Okay? Ariana is about 4 here. And she does not walk. She does not crawl. We worked on sitting for a long time, and she finally got to sitting. And next slide. After sitting, and we're sitting on a bench now, which is a little more challenging for the balance and working on the core. She doesn't know she's working on her core, but I know she's working on her core. Okay, so the next slide. She's still working on her core. I'm asking her to reach out to touch something again, working on her core and all of this. Next slide. This is her mom on it's my left-hand side of the screen. It must be your right-hand side of the screen. And you see a therapy ball a lot. If you go to a gym or anywhere else, you'll see these balls a lot. We use them in therapy with the kids for a mobile surface that she's got to stand against. And mom's keeping her entertained, and I'm working on her foot placement to get her the line where I want it to be. Next slide. There's quite a few of her in this. And you can't see her feet very well in this. She needed to have some support onto her feet because she really, really caved in like this, which is not a good position for your knees, your hips, and everything else. So, and she's leaning on the ball. But in the next slide, we're trying to get her up. Now she's up, now she's using her body and not just hanging on the ball and using her muscles the way we want it to be. Next slide. Again, still working on that. A little bit where you can see her feet there. They're just a little bit caved inward, and so she's going to need to be braced on that. She eventually got up, walked with a walker for a long time, and was able to take steps around the house. So, again, a great success story. Next slide. Again, happy. I had somebody with me this day, obviously, who could take pictures. Okay, next slide. This is Charlie. Now, Charlie was a child with Down syndrome, which he had from birth. And Charlie was able to get up and walk and do all those things. Then Charlie got leukemia. And when he got leukemia, you can see he's in treatment here. When he got leukemia, he lost all his skills because of the medications and the chemotherapy. So the elks came in, we started working. He's standing here, and in the next slide, his favorite place to be inside his box. Happy, he's able to walk, he's able to communicate, he's in a school program now, and his cancer is in remission of the leukemia. So, wonderful story. The next slide. Charlie and I had a lot in common. I went through chemotherapy and radiation 5 years ago. That's my husband on my right, my son on my left, and in this picture we decided it was time that everybody got their hair shaved. So my son and my father joined me, and I think I became the 8-ball, and the one on my right is the cue ball, and we called the other one the corner pocket. So Charlie and I had a lot in common during this period of time, that we were both in treatment for our cancers, and both of them have been in remission, which is all good. I have to give the Elks the credit for this too. All the time I was in treatment, I was also still working and still employed, and so I was still on insurance, which is part of what you provide for me. So thank you. Thank you for being there for me when I needed you in my cancer treatment. Next slide. This is Christian. He hated having his picture taken. Again, you see him on the therapy ball. Now, he's a child that has Mobius syndrome, which is a syndrome. If you look at that little right hand, the digits are missing. Okay? He also has a paralysis of his face that he cannot emote. So you'll never see him smile. You can only see it in his eyes. So, next slide. He's up. He's not happy. He didn't like cameras. I don't know why. He just didn't. But we worked for a long time. Next slide. This is a standard that I put him in so that he could be fully weight-bearing. He hated this also. But again, you can see the right hand with the missing digits. He was a very sharp kid. He went into a normal classroom as a kindergartner, walking with his walker, and eventually was walking on his own. Next slide. This is just a close-up of him. Now you can really see the hand with the missing digits. Okay, the fingers are syndactyly, two are connected, and they're missing. It's all part of the syndrome. The other hand had full digits on it, and so he was very capable. But you can see where the face just looks kind of droopy. That's because of the nerve paralysis in the face, so you could never really tell if he was really, really happy. Next slide. This is his brother. The only thing he's missing is his front teeth. And that was normal at that time. But remember I said we always incorporate the kids and the family into it, so I always incorporated the little brother or older brother into this with this child too. Next slide. This is him, Christian, a few years later, up with his walker. And I don't have it here with me, but I have a short video of him where he lets go of the walker and walks across the room to me. So, great success story. And again, he's really happy in this picture. You just can't tell from his facial expression. But he is really happy. He likes being up and being able to walk and be with the other kids. Next slide. This is Delilah and her dad. Delilah was a theme child for the Major Project, meaning she was at convention one year. Oh, it's got to be about 8 or 9 years ago now. So next slide. Delilah was born with her internal organs on the outside of her body. So they had to put the internal organs back in. And when they did, somehow the anesthesia or the blood supply or whatever got shut off to her brain, and she ended up with what they would call cerebral palsy. But it was due to, dare I say, an error, okay, on the physician's part and the surgeon's part. These are her parents. This is her house. This is her with her walker. Her face, she's very happy. She was not always happy when we were in treatment, but she was happy here. Let's get her picture taken. Next slide. She worked on the floor. You can see her left hand has a little more involvement. It's like this on the floor instead of being like this on the floor. It's a little more involvement, so we're always working on that. She's working on her balance. We're going to play ball. Work on her balance. She wears braces to help her feet and support her in the correct alignment. Next slide. Again, look at that face. Now she's up, she's upright, she's not leaning to the side, she's pretty happy. They eventually moved from Layton, where they lived, a little tiny small community, into Fresno. And when she moved into Fresno, then she got services through California Children's Services, which has schools for the orthopedically handicapped kids. So she went there for therapy. I didn't get to see her anymore. kind of not make me very happy, but family had to move. Okay, next slide. This is her in her pink wheelchair. She got to pick pink. She was a very pink girl. She was just pink, pink, pink. Mom had pink on her all the time, and Delilah was a girl's girl. Next slide. This is Deanna. We didn't plan to wear matching shirts that day, but when I finally saw this picture, I went, oh, we have matching shirts on. Deanna is about 10 years old. She attends regular school out in Corcoran. I think that's right, Corcoran. And pink shoelaces. She's also a girl. She walks with this walker all around campus at school. She's in a regular classroom doing regular schoolwork. She's an only child. Next slide. But she has lots of cousins. And the cousins were usually there in the afternoon when I saw her after school. And so we put all the cousins to work too. You know, they'd help us with the sit-ups and the push-ups and the working on the ball and the stretches, and they'd have to do them too. And I'd make the oldest boy there do more push-ups than anybody else because you're the oldest. So you get to do 20. Yeah, you only got to do 3. So we always let him do the most. All right, next slide. This is Emmanuel. Now, Emmanuel has a congenital heart defect. He is also on a ventilator. That's what the tubing is to his trach, which makes him breathe right here. He's visually impaired. You can see that too. He spent about the first year of his life in the hospital before he ever got to come home. And this is one of the first times I think I met him at his home. And then I think the next slide is way later. Let's look at the hairstyle. Okay, the first one had a shaved head. Now he's got hair. This is the same sander, so I took it from Christian's house, but he didn't need it anymore. Brought it to Emmanuel's house, and he's using it facing forward with toys on the front and extending his back and using his hips and his feet and his ankles. He's not very happy. He was never very happy to see me. He would give me this. Look the other way and just talk to the hand. So we had quite a time. Next slide. This is Edmund, and he was another kid with a congenital heart defect. But by the time we were working here, he was able to walk on his own and be pretty much a very normal little boy. When I first saw him, he was not sitting, he was not crawling, he was not standing, he was not walking. But you made that happen. Next slide. This is Everett. Everett is another kid with Down syndrome, and I don't know why they have to get whacked twice. But he also has a one-sided involvement on his body. So he has a hemiplegia, also a cerebral palsy, in addition to his Down syndrome. The other kid, Charlie, you saw with Down syndrome, got leukemia. I don't know why they got to get whacked twice. You know, it's bad enough to get one or the other, but these kids got twice. So this is Everett, and next slide. He was a little teeny guy. We're working on balance on the ball. Next slide. He likes to wave. You can see the right hand is his involvement. Right hand involvement, right side involvement means he had a left insult on his brain, okay? So a left hemorrhage of some kind that caused his weakness on this side of his body. However, the speech center is also on this side of your brain. So this boy had no expressive language, but I got a lot of this, top of the hand, top of the hand. He was able to learn sign language so very well. And you'll see a slide in a minute where he's doing some letters and recognition. Next slide.
That's impressive.
We're working on the ball. That right hand had involvement, but by working over the ball this way, he can open that hand and begin to bear weight through it so it can become more functional. So he wasn't always happy to see me, but we persevered. Next slide. Again, now pushing up from there, so he's working on his shoulders. He doesn't know he's working on his shoulders, but he thinks he's just having fun playing over the ball. Next slide. Again, working on rotation and twisting on that ball, balance and core work again. I don't know what the tugging on the ear was. I always thought that was Carol Burnett, but I guess he picked it up somewhere. Next slide. Okay, so he wears braces on his feet. And we were starting to work on walking. He is about, 2 here, 2.5, something along those lines. Just a little kid. Oh, my hair's different here too. Okay, next slide. Working at the sofa, again, trying to work side to side, step side to side so he can learn to walk. Next slide. I was sitting on my buckets, sitting on my benches, working from sit up to stand, push up to stand, working on your glutes, even though he doesn't know he's working on his glutes, but I know he's working on his glutes. Okay, next slide. He's successful. A lot of kids see this belly hanging out in the front and the big sway in his back. Means we got to work more on the belly. More on the belly. Doesn't mean we got to work any more on the back, but we got to work more on the belly to get that tucked in and under where it should be. Next slide. This was a little toy that it's hard to see, but the green one is a triangle, and then there's a circle and a heart, and a square, and the thing on the top, it's a regular play toy, would tell him to hit the square or the circle or the triangle, and he would get it every time. Every time. Pretty smart kid. Next slide. As a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old doing that, recognizing all this. Again, the right hand, fisted, it's got a little more involvement to it. Next slide. But every once in a while, he just has to take a break. Just put his head down, take a nap. Doesn't want to work anymore. I always have to be alert to that with the kids because I don't want him to fall over. Okay, next slide, please. This is him about 1.5 years later. I've got my Major Project shirt on again in different hair. He's jumping up and down on that trampoline, and see the walker in the background? He's now using that little walker to get up and walk around. He's able now, he's in a regular kindergarten class and able now to take steps. He uses the walker at school all the time to take steps from like here to there with the chair. So he's going to be on his way. Again, he's in school now, so I don't see him anymore. Things happen when they go to school. Next slide. This is what I meant about him being smart and matching things. I could show him a picture of a ball or a rabbit or whatever, and he'll go pick out the letter that goes with that. The letter. Remember the first kid recognizing circle, square, and triangle? This is what it can lead to. That they can actually recognize the letters, and if he can recognize the letters and put them together, he can learn to read. So lots of things happen. Next slide. Pretty happy. There's the picture of the ball, and he's going to go find the letter B down there on the table for me and hand it to me, which he did. Next slide, please. This is Hector. He's another kid that has an involvement on his right side. So again, speech and language was somewhat limited, and he's doing everything with his left hand. Next slide. He's working with his mom. He's sitting on the floor, and I would like him to switch this leg back around the other direction, but we weren't successful at that for right now. Next slide. Very good with his left hand. Come on, Mom. Get it over to his right side. You know, sometimes it's training the parent to do what I want them to do too. Next slide. Again, putting it in with his left hand. He's going to leave that right hand behind because it's hard. It's hard. Next slide. Again, Mama, come on. Get it over to the other side. But it's still coming up to his left hand. So my part in this is to instruct the mom even more on how to get him to use that right hand even more. With him, we did something called constraint therapy. I actually put a cast on his left hand that was removable, but just a cast to block it out. Now he has to use this one because he doesn't have his fingers to use anymore. So that was very successful for him to use the constraint therapy. Next slide, please. Again, we're still working on that left hand. I want it on the right hand, but we're not there yet. Next slide. When he's going outside in the backyard, get to the next slide. Look, 2 hands are on the rail. We finally got him to use that right hand to reach for something, and it was to hang on to the side of the house so that he could walk outside. Had this big trampoline in the backyard on top of cement. We never went in the trampoline, okay? Just, no. And they raised great big dogs. I forget what they were called, which kind of dogs they were, but there were kennels in the back with these great big dogs. I was going, okay, we're not going to work in the backyard today because the dogs are loose, okay? We're going to go back in the house. Next slide, please. This is Jamie, another kid with Down syndrome, and that's his mom. And now you see the ball again. It doesn't look like a therapy ball, but for him it is. It's down to his size. He's a 4-year-old here. He also was seen by occupational therapy for feeding because this kid would not eat. He would not eat. He would not eat food. He would not eat. Mom had to always give him a bottle. He's a 4-year-old. So it was a big battle for her on that part. I stayed out of the feeding thing. I learned a long time ago I'm not the feeding therapist, I'm the physical therapist. Okay, next slide. Working sit to stand off with the ball with his mom doing the work. And look at the face. See that face? Nice smile. Okay, next slide. There he is again, still working on similar things. Next slide. Next slide. Now he's working, again, this is a different day, different hair, different shirt. Again, off the lunch bucket to sit and stand at the sofa, and he's pretty happy. You should know this kid was never happy with me. Never. He would yell at me and yell at me and yell at me. Where do you see the slide when he's up with the walker? Okay, come on again, next slide. Up to stand, I'm working on his bottom, getting him up there. Next slide. See that happy face? He never had a happy face. I don't know how they got this picture. He's probably actually yelling. It just looks like he's happy. Okay? He's probably just screaming, and if we knew what he was saying, it wouldn't be nice. Okay? So, next slide. And look at that face again. He just looks like he would be an angelic child to work with. Oh, what a lie, what a lie, what a lie. Next slide. Okay, concentrating on that walker. He went on with the walker. Next slide. Next slide, Mom working on shifting him from side to side, which he needs to be able to do to take steps. Next slide. Again, next slide. And do you see the walker anywhere? Because this kid learned to walk. He got up and took off. He's probably 5.5 here, and going into special ed in Fresno. And again, pat yourself on the back because you made it happen. You made it happen by being a part of the major project and being an elk member or just supporting the major project. You made this happen. Next slide. He's a happy kid. He quit yelling at me. He quit yelling at me. Next slide. He has a step down right here in the living room. There's the old walker over there behind him. He doesn't need it anymore. And you can't tell that that's a step down until you see the next slide where he's stepping up. So he can do both of them. And again, you made that happen. You made that happen. Next slide. This is lasagna. Sounds like lasagna, but it's not. It's lasagna. Okay. This is a kid that got a really, really high fever. She was a normal kid until she was about 14, 16 months old. Got a really, 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 really high fever. Got into the hospital and really, really, really cooked her brain. Okay. So next slide. This is her mom. This is a really happy kid. She never complained when I was there. And I did things with her that were uncomfortable because her body was extremely tight. So a lot of stretching needed to be done. But she was always very happy, happy, happy kid. Next slide. This is her little sister. And now you see lasagna there with that big, big smile that she always had for me, even though things that we did might not be comfortable. So even if what you see is just a child being so totally happy and so totally part of the family, you made that happen. Next slide. This is Oscar. Oscar has spina bifida also. He's about 3 here. He's a very high-level spina bifida. So he doesn't have any movement in his body from about here down. Next slide. Also hydrocephalic, has a tube in his head to drain the cerebral spinal fluid down. We're working on sitting. You can see it's even hard for him. He's got hands down to support himself. Next slide. Sweet kid. He was easy to work with. Great family. Next slide. This is his older sister. Probably about 1.5 years or 2 years after this picture was taken, she was killed in a car accident. Why does this stuff happen to these families? Why do the kids get hit twice with 2 different things? Why does a family with a child with spina bifida and a sister who was fabulous working with him get killed in a car accident? She wasn't driving. Cars were coming. They were stopped here. This car was coming. Their car was stopped here. This car came through the intersection. This car hit this car. This car hit their car. They didn't even move. And she died. They're coming home from church. It just gets worse, okay? Next slide, please. This is him in a different kind of a stander, but still working on standing. We work on standing even though he's probably not going to walk because he's paralyzed from really high up here. But we need to stand to keep our bones strong, and so that they can stay in a good alignment. So we work on standing even with that. Next slide. At the same time, we work on the upper body all the time, more extension, whatever we can do to strengthen the upper body. That's his dad giving him the ball, and I think he's about to hit me with the ball. Next slide. There's a piano, just a toy piano there. We can work on that while he's in his stander. Next slide. Which is the same slide. He's going to throw the ball at me. Okay, next slide. This is Ulysses. He has cerebral palsy. He's about 4 here. He's working on a puzzle that he's got to put the correct ones in there. His hands are very, very involved. Next slide. So he's got to get the shapes in there correctly, and it's a little bit more difficult using these shapes than using circle, square, and triangle, because he's got to fit all the little parts in. Next slide. But he can do it. We've worked on it. He can do it. He can get that little pinch to go on the little handle on the top of the thing to be able to put the puzzle pieces in. Next slide. And when they're successful, next slide, they're really happy. This is his mom. And she's built the structure over there with the 4 blocks and 1 in the middle. And he's to copy it. So, next slide. He's really concentrating on being able to do that. Look at mom's face. And she's really proud of him for persevering and staying with him. Next slide. Okay, he's checking it again. What am I supposed to be doing? Next slide. He's taken it apart. She's taken hers apart. He was successful in getting this together, and now he's doing it from memory. Next slide. And now he's going to go correct mom's because hers doesn't look right. Okay? He's going to fix hers because it didn't look right. Next slide. And then he's going to rebuild mom's. So he built his structure, and now he's going to build hers. Next again. Recognizing the shapes and the patterns, again, is all more towards recognizing letters, recognizing for reading, for writing, and being able to read and communicate through the written word too. Next slide. Again, happy faces. Happy faces. That always means success to me. Happy faces. Next slide. These are little cookies that have a number on them. They're plastic. It's a toy. They have a number on the bottom of them, and then like chocolate chips that have the same amount. So if there's 9 on the bottom, there's 9 dots on the top. So I'm asking him to go find the one that has find the cookie that's an 8. So next slide. That's his dad sitting behind him. Sometimes the dads are home. I get to work with them too. Sometimes the moms are home. Sometimes the grandmas are home. Sometimes the siblings are home. So he was an only child. So he's looking, he's counting, he's concentrating, trying to find the right dots that have 8. So next slide. He's still concentrating. Dad's concentrating too. Next slide. Next slide. There it is. There's the 8. Look at Dad's face. Okay? I think he's happier than his son. Okay? And then he gets to put it in the cookie machine, and the cookie machine will tell him, now go find me a 10. So he can put it in, and so if he got the 10, it would say, oh, congratulations, you did a good job. The toys talk to him. Next slide. So he's putting it in. He's getting his reward. Next slide. This is my box of nuts and bolts and washers. So he not only has to open it, you can see where the hand is in this kind of form. I mean, you and I would be like this. So his hands have a lot of involvement. Next slide. And he's concentrating putting those washers in. I would tell him to count out 10 or 7. Pick a number. I'd make him count the number out, put the washers on, put the nut on the end of it, and then after we've done that, now you got to take it apart. Put them all back in the right slots, in the right order. So lots of mental work to do along with the physical work of strengthening his hands. Next. And here he is writing. What I want you to notice about this is his left hand is supporting him on the table. He's kind of falling out of the chair. This is a kid that did not have really good control over his whole body. And it was due to the type of cerebral palsy that he had. Smart kid, he's writing his name. Smart kid, but had a lot of control issues in his body itself. Next slide. He's the kid that would fall out of his chair in the classroom. So he needed a special chair in his classroom. You know, those are the things that we can help these kids and these families to understand that he's not falling out of the chair because he thinks it's funny. He's falling out of the chair because he can't control his body. Okay, next slide. Oh, so these are...
Oops, hang on. What happened here?
Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is coming back to my conclusion on all of this. So, happy kids, okay? Happy kids. This was congenital heart. He got up and walked. He could talk. He could see. He could play. You made that happen. Next slide. Look at both of those faces, okay? Success in building a 10-block tower. That's on every developmental test you give kids, everywhere. And look at those faces. More so than the 10-block towers, the faces tell me a lot more. Next slide. That's the family. They're a whole family, they're a complete family, and they're a pretty happy family. And you made that happen. Next slide. Delilah, again, happy. You know, she doesn't know that she's walking with a walker. She just thinks it's a great play toy that's in her house. She doesn't know that she's wearing braces because her feet are kind of weird. She just wears them and she likes them. She can put pink shoes on with them. She's a girl and she's happy as long as she can be in something pink. Next slide, please. This is Lasagna. Again, you brought all the smiles to these faces. That's her younger sister, and then after this, she had a younger brother, too. So, next slide, please. Again, happy faces that you make happen. Whether they're in a pink wheelchair, using a pink walker, wearing braces, or whatever, they're very happy kids, doing wonderful things because you make it happen. Next slide. Again, the faces tell you everything. And you make that happen. You make those faces light up. You make the smiles come to these kids. You, as ELK members and people that support the Major Project, make that happen. I get to see it firsthand, but I hope it's helpful when I can bring you your kids. And you can see their faces. So next slide. See their faces and see their smiles. And next slide. Now we're not in the almonds anymore. But we've gone full circle and it's springtime again. And I think we're in the peach blossoms here. So, in coming full circle in all of this, in all of these things that we've looked at tonight, you need to know that you made it happen. You, by being people that are charitable and humble and caring and with big elk hearts, that reach out to children that are less successful and disabled, and you promise them smiles and a great future. So thank you for having me here tonight. I'll take any questions you might have.